What is up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. Today, I'm going to be giving my full card predictions for UFC 309. Without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right into it, looking to have a better pay-per-view than last time. Unfortunately, got the main event wrong and wasn't profitable in terms of betting, but have been having really good predictions on the fight nights, been profitable betting on the fight nights since UFC 308, so looking to have a good pay-per-view here. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. First fight of the night, we got Veronica Hardy versus Eduardo Mora. I'm going to be picking Veronica Hardy here to get it done by decision. She's got Dan Hardy in her corner. She's pretty good. Just tends to be a little bit more cerebral, makes better decisions in the octagon as opposed to her WMMA counterparts that she's facing. Not the most athletic girl, but she's got good submissions, pretty good striking, just good technique overall, and the fight IQ is there, which is more than can be said about most WMMA fighters. Give me Veronica Hardy to win here via decision to start off this card. And Dan Hardy in her corner, he's always going to make a good game plan, always going to do hella tape study on her opponents. And I do think that makes a big difference, having a good coach like that that's super invested in your career at a low level in WMMA. I think that helps her a lot. I think she keeps her winning streak going here. Give me Veronica Hardy to start off the night. Next fight on the card, we got Elliot versus Basel Hafez. Elliot, last time out, looked really good versus Preston Parsons, beat Val Woodburn before that. Pretty well-rounded fighter, has good striking, really good grappling as well. Positionally aware, very opportunistic to be able to, get in mount, stuff along those lines. Just, a classic UK well-rounded fighter. Basel Hafez, super good cardio, good wrestling in his own right, trains out there, at Team Elevation with Justin Gaethje and a lot of them out there, with Trevor Whitman and all that. Corey Sandhagen, pretty good. Last time out, had a more competitive fight with Mickey Gall than you would like if you were going to be picking him here in this spot. Fight before that, had an absolute scrap with JDM. Kept it competitive, just got outstruck there, but really showed his heart, his determination, his cardio on short notice. Looked good in that fight, got some timely takedowns where, JDM was making the mistake of pulling the gilly. But, in this fight, I'm going to pick Basel Hafez to get it done. I think he is just going to be able to stop a lot of the grappling offense from Elliot. And on the feet, in terms of technique for technique, both of these guys are kind of on the same level. Elliot might be a little bit more clean in terms of the shots he's throwing and how they look, but Basel Hafez, he's pretty effective, moves forward with good forward pressure. And, Mickey Gall, I think in that fight, he really just, was coming off of a layoff, really just gave it his all there. Can't hate on Basel Hafez too much for that, only his second UFC fight. Both of these guys going into their third UFC fight here. Look, I think Basel Hafez is just going to be a little bit more physical in there, and I think he will be able to get the job done via decision. So give me Basel Hafez here in the second fight of the night. Like I said, I think the grappling will kind of just cancel out because Basel Hafez, super strong, good wrestling in his own right. I think he stuffs a lot of takedowns. I think we see a striking affair mainly. I think this plays out on the feet, and I think Basel Hafez is going to be able to edge a decision. Close, 29-28 for Basel Hafez. Next fight on the card, we got Mickey Gall versus brahimaj. Low-level fight here. Neither of these guys are super good. Mickey Gall, been around for a while, but just a complete 50-50 below 500 level fighter. 7-6, terrible record. brahimaj, kind of the same. Pretty good submissions in his arsenal, but 10-5 nonetheless. Last time out versus Thimba Gorimbo, looked terrible, coming off of a long layoff where in that fight, I bet heavily on Thimba Gorimbo. Not because I'm super high on Thimba Gorimbo, but because he was only a -150 favorite. And brahimaj, before the Thimba Gorimbo fight, which took place, I believe, in April, he was out for almost 2 years, had to get back surgery. And after the back surgery, he was super depressed, got on pills, was just completely fucked up off of the perks, I guess, from his back surgery. for a super long time, was going through a lot of adversity in his life and career, which is terrible, don't get me wrong, but I knew he didn't stand a chance in his last fight versus Thimba. And a lot of people probably don't know about him and that situation just because he's not a super known guy. But I did a lot of research on that fight just because I was like, why has this dude been out for so long? So big red flags on the side of Ramiz Brahimaj. Was getting taken down with ease by Thimba, just getting ragdolled. Boring fight, but just had nothing to offer, not even off of his back with submissions. Not good on the feet. Mickey Gall, he's just a guy that is a mid. He's going to go in there and scrap. He's going to give it his all, but I don't know. I think that this fight is predominantly going to play out on the feet because Ramiz, he's got good jiu-jitsu. He's got good submissions, but he's not really taking anybody down. And I don't see him going out here and just shooting a blast double on Mickey Gall, getting him down and getting a submission. I think this is going to be a super slow-paced, low-level fight on the feet where Mickey Gall can win just purely based off of determination, will, and, not coming off of a super long layoff where he was, addicted to pills and shit after a surgery. Not good whatsoever on the side of Ramiz Brahimaj. I think Mickey Gall wins this just by virtue of being, less handicapped and has some type of momentum going. I mean, I know he's an older guy, but give me Mickey Gall to win by 3rd round TKO. Fuck it. Our next fight on the card, Marcin Tybura. He's a great fighter. I'd love to fight him. Versus Diniz. Now, this is a tricky one here. Diniz was supposed to fight Derek Lewis on the UFC Edmonton card in Canada 2 weeks ago. Derek Lewis pulled out. Switching up here, gets the spot on UFC 309 versus Marcin Tybura, who is stepping in on short notice here, 2 weeks notice pretty much. What this fight comes down to is Marcin Tybura going to be prepared enough with his takedowns to be able to get this to the mat and get Diniz out of there with a ground and pound TKO or a submission, or just blob on him and lay on him for the entire fight. He's got to grapple here because Diniz is very good on the feet for a heavyweight. Nice kickboxing, good leg kicks, good hand combinations, good power. He's a good kickboxer in the heavyweight division, undefeated 8-0. Has looked good in his first 2 fights. Wins over Austin Lane, a win over Carl Williams, which is a good win, 3-0 in the UFC other than the Diniz fight. And TKO in that first fight versus Lane, a decision versus motherfucking Carl Williams, which is a good look. He can go all 3 rounds. Didn't really tire out too bad in that fight. Had to defend some takedowns in the 3rd round. But Williams and Austin Lane did take Diniz down in both of those fights. And that's not a good look if you're going to be picking him here versus the crafty Marcin Tybura, because Marcin Tybura, we saw versus Tai Tuivasa, he can get lit up on the feet. If he gets that body lock around you with 265 pounds of weight and gets you on the mat, it's not going to be a super easy day at the office. And Diniz kind of looks like a fish out of water. He's good at defending the takedown, but once he gets down, he's not getting up. He just simply isn't getting up. So, it's hard because Diniz has power in his hands. I can really see him just going out here and starching Tybura, but Tybura, it's a guarantee that if he gets this fight to the ground, he will win. So it's hard. It's just a classic, crafty grappler versus a dangerous striker matchup. I will be picking Diniz here to get it done. Like I said, the grappling is a major concern, but, you kind of just got to go with the undefeated guy that's on the up and up, that, has the knockout threat versus the crafty vet coming in on short notice where he has to get it to the mat. I could see Marcin coming in here, trying to just ease his way into the fight. Not having the full fight camp, isn't going to be fully prepared. If he's not able to get his takedowns, I see him getting starched. I think that happens. I think he's just not going to go for the takedowns early enough because sometimes the heavyweights just don't have good fight IQ. Give me Diniz to win by round 2 TKO. I think this fight plays out, Diniz landing some jabs, landing some leg kicks. Tybura gets him against the fence and just kind of clinches him, smudges him against the fence for the last, 45 seconds of the round. Beginning in the 2nd round, Diniz catches him with a big 2-3, puts him out cold. Give me Diniz by TKO here in this fight. Our next bout on the card, we got another battle of old heads. We got Jim Miller versus Damon Jackson. So this is an interesting fight to try and predict because, you know, it's just hard when you're predicting two old heads that are fighting just completely out of their prime, and both of these guys have major red flags. You know, Damon Jackson is super good at getting chinned. I mean, he just constantly gets knocked out. You look at the Dan Ige fight, you look at the Elliot fight, you know, has been dropped on multiple occasions outside of the UFC, you know, PFL comes to mind. He gets knocked out a lot, but, you know, he has good wins, you know, over Pat Sabatini, over Alexander Hernandez. Those are good wins in terms of looking at a Jim Miller matchup here for him. Jim Miller, you know, was on a tear before that Bobby Green fight, looked really good before then, but he was fighting a lower level of competition than he has in the past and that he is fighting right now. Jim Miller, you know, he's crafty, he's got the takedowns, he's got submissions, got nice Muay Thai combos, ending it off with the leg kicks. Damon Jackson, you know, kind of utilizes his reach, has the lanky man's boxing, and is pretty good on the mat as well. If anybody's going to have success in terms of grappling in this fight, I see it being Damon Jackson. The pick is going to be Damon Jackson, but Jim Miller does have power in his hands. He's super crafty, and he's always able to just land these, you know, off the center line, weird timing overhands that just land. You know, he can do it with his right, he can do it with his left. He's really good at catching people with a slick overhand that they don't see coming. And if Damon Jackson gets hit with anything that he doesn't see coming, he's going to be seizing on the mat, flopping on the deck like a fish. So Jim Miller is live for a TKO here, but, you know, after that last fight, took a lot of damage versus Bobby Green. I mean, that could have been a third round TKO. I really thought they were going to stop that fight. I picked Jim Miller in that fight solely based off the fact that I did not believe in Bobby Green's chin or his ability to defensively grapple. Jim Miller didn't shoot takedowns in that fight, which, you know, worries me going into this fight because, you know, if he's able to get Damon Jackson on his back, maybe he can get some work done. You know, I can see Damon Jackson taking him down, having more success on the ground. I'm picking Damon Jackson because, you know, the volume's going to be there on the feet. I think he's going to check a lot of the low kicks, and I don't see him getting chinned here in this fight. Jim Miller is slowing down. He's, you know, one of the oldest fighters on the roster. I think Damon Jackson can squeeze out a decision here, you know, have some timely grappling exchanges, you know, land 5 to 10 more significant strikes around. Give me Damon Jackson to win this fight via decision, just solely based on the fact that he's a little bit more fast, you know, a little bit less weathered than Jim Miller, even though he has a horrible chin. I just don't think Jim Miller's going to get this one done. Give me Damon Jackson. My next prediction, our next fight on the card, we got Chris Weidman, and I won't back down, versus Eric Anders. God, dude, Chris Weidman, what a piece of fucking work. You know, he's just a fucking meathead, not a smart guy whatsoever. I mean, you look at the Ariel Helwani interview after he fucking double eye poked Bruno Silva and damn near probably made him lose his vision, and then, you know, ran around celebrating like a fucking idiot, dude. Like, come on, get a grip. You're a fully grown man and you just eye poke TKO'd somebody. Pathetic. You know, didn't even look that great in that fight. You know, you look at Bruno Silva's last outing at the UFC 308, looked like he was just completely stuck in the mud, completely mentally gone. And Chris Weidman, you know, had to resort to eye pokes to get a win over him. You know, in the fight before that versus Brad Tavares, just got absolutely mangled, got another leg injury coming off of a horrible leg break versus Uriah Hall. So, you know, Chris Weidman, he's washed as fuck compared to his, you know, championship days, his contender days. He's not that guy anymore, especially after the injury. Eric Anders, though, is just not a special fighter whatsoever. Not good in any realm of mixed martial arts, really. Isn't really a great wrestler, isn't really a great striker, has some power in his hands, but that's about all he's got going for him. Just a classic, you know, older generation of middleweight fighter who isn't good because, you know, the 2016 to 2019 middleweight era, 2018 to like 2021 middleweight era was just absolute dog shit. Eric Anders, you know, a part of the mix there. I think in New York here, Chris Weidman's home state, I think he's going to be super prepared coming into this fight. I think he's going to, you know, really try and get that all-American wrestling going. And I think he's just going to take down Eric Anders, smudge out a boring decision win, get on the mic, make a outlandish call out or something like that. Let's see Chris Weidman get fed to somebody where it would be a fun knockout, maybe a Robocop, maybe a Kopylov, maybe a Share a Bullet Magomedov. Yeah, let's get Chris Weidman absolutely starched in his next fight. He's going to get a nice tip of the cap here, a nice boring smudge decision, go apeshit on the mic like he actually just did something entertaining afterwards. And yeah, I think, he's going to win this fight, I feel, but he's completely cooked in the middleweight division. He needs to retire. All he's going to be is a stepping stone to fighters with a future. So yeah, I think his next matchup, he gets an absolute murderer on the come up, gets starched. I'll be here for it because I'm not a fan of Chris Weidman whatsoever. I think he's just an absolute jamoke, honestly. So yeah, give me Chris Weidman to win this by decision and get knocked out by Kopylov in his next fight. Damn, I've only picked one TKO, haven't I? No, I picked Mickey Gall by 3rd round TKO. Our next fight on the card, we got Jonathan Martinez versus Marcus McGhee. Good fight here in the bantamweight division. I love the bantamweight division. Definitely my favorite in the UFC. You know, Jonathan Martinez coming in off a loss versus Jose Aldo. Didn't look horrible in that fight, but you know, you're fighting one of the best of all time in Jose Aldo and predominantly striking with him, which fair play to the guy. He kept it entertaining, unlike Mario Bautista, who deserves to be put in jail, federal prison for life. You know, had a fun fight there. You know, before that was on a crazy good win streak. You know, beat Adrian Yanez, beat Said Nurmagomedov, beat guys like, you know, Vince Morales and shit like that. So, you know, was on a really good win streak before that fight. Unfortunately, did lose to Jose Aldo, but, well, not unfortunately. I wanted Jose Aldo to win that fight. I'm sure we all did, but lost his winning streak there. You know, you look at his losses, you know, you look at a David Grant TKO, you look at him getting 30-27 by Jose Aldo. These are the losses he's getting. And he's had a lot of UFC fights, but he just really hasn't been fighting a super high level of competition. And, you know, when you look at Jonathan Martinez's game, the only thing that he really has that stands out is a leg kick. And don't get me wrong, he has some of the best leg kicks in the sport. I mean, we saw that in the Adrian Yanez fight. We saw that in the Cub Swanson fight, you know, finishing both of those guys with leg kick TKOs. The Cub Swanson one specifically stands out, very brutal TKO. Marcus McGhee on the other side here, kind of a newcomer in the UFC, has had 3 UFC fights, but not a well-known guy. Explosive fighter, super strong for the bantamweight division. You know, just has a stocky frame, you know, built like a bull. And he's a super aggressive fighter, switch stance fighter, does like to switch from orthodox to southpaw a lot. Jonathan Martinez, of course, always in that southpaw stance, always in that Muay Thai stance, just blasting the low kicks. When you look at Marcus McGhee's UFC record, you know, all finishes, all of his professional wins are via finish, which, you know, is slightly a concern because you don't know how he's going to look going the distance. But, you know, in his first fight versus Journey Newsome, really impressed in that fight. The striking looked on point. His power in his hands is just off the charts. He hits super hard for a bantamweight and dropped him, hurt him bad, and then he was able to take him down and secure a rear naked choke. Marcus McGhee is predominantly a striker, likes to do most of his work on the feet. Like I said, really good hands, switches stances a lot, kind of eases his way into distance and then explodes and just unleashes a nasty combination. You know, you look at the Gaston Bolaños fight. Gaston Bolaños as well this weekend just got a good victory, so that win is aging good here for Marcus McGhee. Before I was making this prediction, I actually wanted to wait and see how Gaston Bolaños looked in this weekend's fight, and you know, I kind of wanted to use that as cross-examination. And you know, Gaston Bolaños won and looked good. You look at that fight versus Marcus McGhee, which is a very similar stylistic matchup to Jonathan Martinez. Gaston Bolaños is, you know, a guy that likes to slam the rear roundhouse kick. He's a Muay Thai fighter, used to be a Muay Thai, you know, specific only fighter, you know, was a world champion of Muay Thai, had a Muay Thai career before he got into the UFC. So super high level striker, uses the rear leg roundhouse kick a lot. So that is basically a picture perfect, very similar matchup to a Jonathan Martinez. You look at that fight with Marcus McGhee and Bolaños, and Marcus McGhee is giving him a lot of trouble. Bolaños was trying to time that kick, but Marcus was just in and out of range, super fast twitch. And, you know, he would just come in, instantly close kicking distance, not let him get any kicks off, and just unleash a nasty hand combination, hurting him on the feet multiple times. Also incorporating some very, very good, explosive, timely takedowns. We've seen the submission game he does have versus Jeremy Newsome, not Jeremy Newsome, but, you know, was able to mix in takedowns, was able to be super dangerous, instantaneously cutting the kicking range of the Muay Thai fighter in Bolaños. I see him doing something very, very similar here to Jonathan Martinez. All he has to worry about is checking a leg kick. Marcus is a pretty cerebral fighter for the most part. I see him checking all these leg kicks. I see him instantaneously cutting the kicking distance of the heavy Muay Thai style of Jonathan Martinez, unleashing a nasty hand combination and getting himself a TKO. Let's not forget that Jonathan Martinez, while he was on a good win streak, does not have good durability whatsoever. You look at the David Grant fight, got absolutely laid out on his back, stiff by David Grant. And, you know, Jose Aldo, who isn't a guy that really gets a ton of TKOs nowadays, had him on skates in the third round, rocked him, dropped him 2 times in that third round. The durability of Jonathan Martinez is definitely going to be the deciding factor here. For me, picking Marcus McGhee by TKO, Marcus McGhee has incredible power in his hands, very good hand speed, and in his last fight, I saw the game plan that he needs to use to beat Jonathan Martinez, executed perfectly versus Bolaños. I think he does the same thing here. Give me Marcus McGhee by second round TKO. I'm actually really looking forward to his future in the UFC. Really entertaining fighter. He is an older fighter though, like he's already 34 years of age, but you know, a lot of that is because he suffered a car accident, I believe, and he had to, you know, get surgery and all that stuff. So that kept him out of the cage for a long time before he was able to transition into the UFC. But I think he's gonna take it in full stride here in his pay-per-view debut and get a good win over Jonathan Martinez, get himself into the rankings. Jonathan Martinez though, I think he's just gonna have to develop his game because, you know, look, I love Muay Thai. I love, you know, purist Muay Thai. But that shit just does not really work in MMA when you're fighting a guy like Marcus McGhee who can incorporate the takedowns, who can switch stances constantly to avoid taking too much damage with the low kicks, and a guy that can cut that kicking distance super, super fast. He's super explosive. And look, Jonathan Martinez, he does a lot of good work in the clinch as well, but Marcus McGhee, I've never seen this man get outstrengthed by anybody. Every time he's in a clinch, grappling situation, he's always just out-muscling these guys to the ground. Like I said, built like a fucking ox. And he's gonna go in there and just bully Jonathan Martinez for the first round, get a second round TKO just with a nice hand combination. Like I said, I like Jonathan Martinez. He's a great fighter, but his game is just too limited to have success over fighters like Marcus McGhee, Jose Aldo, guys like this. So he needs to incorporate, you know, better hands, maybe, you know, a submission threat to his game because he's good in the clinch, maybe some judo trips, but just too one-dimensional of a fighter. I can't pick someone solely based on leg kicks versus someone as well-rounded and as promising as a Marcus McGhee. Our next fight on the card, our opener of the main card. Whew, do we have a good prospect here on our hands? Mauricio Ruffy out of the Fighting Nerds versus James Llontop. Look, let's start with James Llontop. I mean, had a good win on the Contender Series, but has just been lackluster in his UFC appearances so far. Facing good competition, don't get me wrong. I mean, Chris Padilla, a guy that is 2-0 in the UFC, 2 beautiful finishes. You look at the submission he got over Llontop. You look at that nasty elbow he got over the Chinese fighter. I'm so bad at the Asian fighters' names. I can't even remember his name. But, you know, Chris Padilla, a very good fighter. Can't hate on James Llontop too much for losing that fight. And his next fight after that versus Vyacheslav Boryshev, you know, made it competitive. I did pick Boryshev to win that fight. Had a pretty large bet on Vyacheslav Boryshev as well. And look, what that fight came down to was the fact that it was going to be a striking affair. Boryshev is a kickboxer and James Llontop, you know, is just a MMA just an MMA generalist, but he just doesn't mix in the grappling whatsoever, does prefer to stand and strike, and all he really has is a low kick and some power in his hands. He doesn't throw good combinations, doesn't really have outstanding kicks at range, doesn't really have a good range game in terms of implementing volume. Just a guy that slams your leg and looks for a big shot over the top, really. He's a very simplistic fighter, not a guy that makes in-fight adjustments, and that's why I picked Bearjew to beat him. And when you're looking at Bearjew, you know, switch stance kickboxer, really good combinations, really clean, good head movement, but a guy that's super chinny. And a guy that I was still confident would beat him, and he went out there and did beat him, which in my opinion should have been a clear 29-28. Somehow it was split decision. But, you know, when you look at that fight, Bearjew was landing beautiful kicks to the body, beautiful left hooks upstairs. I mean, there was one point where James Llontop threw a super slow, sloppy right hand. Bearjew just slipped and countered with a beautiful left hook directly on the jaw and rocked him badly in that exchange. Bearjew does do a lot of work out of the southpaw stance, and he had massive success with it against Llontop, like I said, with the body kicks, the left body kicks, and as well with the left hand, the counter left hand in specific, that pull counter. James Llontop has never been TKO'd in his professional career, but look, if you're getting fucked up by Bearjew, Mauricio Ruffy is gonna put this man on a stretcher. Mauricio Ruffy, or should I say Conor McGregor, is gonna go in here and absolutely stain this dude with a slip left hand. It's written in the fucking stars, dude. These fighting nerds have plot armor. I've been telling you guys, you know, about Carlos Prates ever since he got on the scene. You know, Cal Barajo, I wasn't fully convinced on, I'll be honest, but, you know, fucking destroyed Jared Cannonier last time out. These guys are elite. John Silva, I've picked him in all of his fights. Just a dude, just a team, and surrounded by dudes that are just murderers. And look, they all have different styles. I mean, it's just, that gym is sick. I mean, I know the hype around them, but it's just really a phenomenon. I mean, the script writers for the UFC are going crazy with this fighting nerds plot. But look, I mean, you know, Cal Barajo, he's got the Marauder at middleweight style. Carlos Prates, you know, beautiful Muay Thai. John Silva, just slick boxing, nasty elbows, just a damage-inflicting fighter. And Mauricio Ruffy is just simply the Brazilian Conor McGregor. You know, got a nice TKO in his Dana White Contender Series fight. Looked good in that fight, but he didn't make me think he was going to be a world beater. At UFC 301 versus Jamie Mullarkey, who Jamie Mullarkey gets chinned easy. He's not the best fighter ever, but look, if you're hitting fucking ninja sweeps on dudes in the UFC in your debut, you have a next level of confidence. When you hit that type of move in a professional fight, that just simply goes to show that you don't think any of these guys have anything for you based on your skill and how confident you are in yourself. He's fucking Rabona kicking him in the fucking, like a calf kick, dude, like Rabona in soccer, behind the leg kick. Landed one of those. That's just purely taking the piss. I mean, this dude wasn't even trying versus Jamie Mullarkey. You know, hitting the Cody Garbrandt leg kick where he slides. I mean, I'm already, you know, just 3 strikes in, and you're talking about just insanely difficult moves to pull off, and this guy is just doing it like he's in a fucking video game. And, you know, apart from the flashy, you know, slide kicks and the scissor sweeps and the fucking, you know, Rabona kicks, the power in his hands and his boxing ability is nasty. I mean, the dude literally just fights like Conor McGregor. You know, beautiful uppercuts, just fade away left hands. The dude literally just fights like McGregor, and he's gonna go in here and starch James Llontop in the first round. But Mauricio Ruffy is gonna go in here, Conor McGregor max, and get a left hand slip counter TKO in the first round. Easy as pie. This dude's a fucking problem. I'm really looking forward to his career. Damn, I definitely just fucking rambled about the fighting nerds forever. That took a minute, but you know, these guys are sick. Really looking forward to the career growth of these dudes, especially once they get in the top 10. Karine Silva versus Vivian Araujo. You're on the wrong channel if you want a prediction for that fight. Give me a break. Our next fight on the card, we got Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. Dude, come on now. Bo Nickal's gonna win this fight, but I'm not gonna act like I'm not concerned. Paul Craig is just one of those guys that can always pull it off. You know, he's a good grappler. He's got good submissions, good body kicks on the feet. But what it comes down to is this. He has no chin, and I just don't see him submitting Bo Nickel off of his back or hitting a guillotine as he's getting taken down or anything like that. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Bo Nickel's smart enough to avoid that. And, you know, you got to think that Bo Nickel will be able to crack Paul Craig on the chin at some point. You know, horrible durability, has been TKO'd more times than I can count. Khalil Roundtree, Brendan Allen, fucking in his last fight versus Caio Barajo, has been chinned more times than we can count. I got Bo Nickel here winning this fight easy. You know, Penn State wrestling, super, super high level wrestling. And I really do think he's actually going to go far in the UFC. He needs a slow build because he is super raw, of course, only 6-0, but this is obviously just a layup spot for him on a John Jones card to get him more exposure. He's going to win this fight. He's always like a minus 1,000 favorite. You know, Bo Nickel is going to win this fight versus Paul Craig. He might hold him against the fence and just take him down for 3 rounds and not get a finish. He can land a ground and pound TKO. He can land a big overhand on the feet. I could see him getting a submission here over Paul Craig. So, you know, Bo Nickel by literally anything he wants. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. Paul Craig is just a classic fucking jiu-jitsu nerd who doesn't really enjoy combat. Just, you know, closing his eyes in the pocket, throwing ugly body kicks with his chin up in the air. You know, unless he just gets a lucky submission, a guillotine, a triangle, or catches Bo Nickel with a head kick, he's not winning this fight. So yeah, give me Bo Nickel. Keep it short and sweet, easy as pie. We move on to the next fight on the card, and this is one that I'm dreading. Dude, Charles Olivera, man. Dude, Charles Olivera. You know, at UFC 300, I was really excited for his fight versus Arman Tsarukyan. I expected him to show up better than he did, and you know, that Charles Olivera in that fight just, it didn't look like the Charles that fought Dariush, or even the Charles that fought, you know, Islam and Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler the first time. You know, he just looked timid, looked like he was just worried. I know that, you know, Tsarukyan was doing really good with the jab, backing up Olivera, implementing the takedowns. That style is always going to give Olivera issues. And, you know, look, I'm as big of a Charles Olivera fan as the next guy. You know, you got to love him. Super inspirational fighter. You know, just an absolute legend of the sport. You know, rematch here versus Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler, of course, coming in off of a huge layoff. Hasn't fought in 2 years since the Izzy versus Pereira 1 card at MSG 2 years ago in November versus Dustin Poirier. You know, got rocked in that fight and then submitted, which, you know, is a pretty horrible look in terms of your last performance if you're going to be going into a fight with Charles Olivera, a guy with nasty power in his hands and the most submissions in UFC history. But just the way I see this fight going is I just think it's going to be ugly and scrappy in the beginning. And I think that one of these guys is going to get a round 1 TKO. And I don't know who it's going to be. Charles Olivera, of course, he's got the brilliant Muay Thai, you know, good front kicks to the body, good knees in the clinch, you know, throws elbows and, you know, strong right hands down the pipe. Just really good overall Muay Thai. Michael Chandler, of course, comes in there like a bat out of hell, black Air Force energy, just swinging big overhands for the fences, gritting down and just swinging with all of his might. If he comes in here and actually fights smart, then he can win this fight easily, in my opinion. But, you know, Michael Chandler doesn't know how to fight smart. As soon as he gets into the fucking arena and as soon as he gets into the cage, it's just fucking balls to the walls, 100,000 miles an hour. And he just goes ape shit. That's literally the only way to explain Michael Chandler's style. He just goes ape shit, big overhands, big blast double legs, big ground and pound shots, fucking Mark Coleman style on him. But, you know, the real question for me in this fight is Charles going to go out here and be, you know, the lightweight lion, or is he going to come out here and be fucking, you know, the Charles Olivera of old that we saw in his last fight? Don't get me wrong, he didn't look horrible in that fight. You know, had some good submission attempts. You look at the reversal he had in the first round of that fight, threatened a guillotine that he didn't get because Arman Tsarukyan's shorts came down, and, you know, had a very deep darce in that third round as the clock went out. But other than that, you're really, you know, it's a needle in a haystack when you're trying to find success for Charles Olivera in that fight. Arman Tsarukyan, of course, is very high level, but just the body language that I saw from Charles Olivera in that fight was even less confident than in his fight versus Islam Makhachev. And you look at the Dariush fight, and you know, we all love to see the head kick and then the 3 right hooks to the TKO on the ground. But, you know, don't forget, in the beginning of that fight, you know, he got touched up on the feet and taken down and held there for the majority of that round before exploding and finding the finish. And then, of course, we all know about his fights with Dustin and Justin. You know, beautiful finishes there with the submissions and, you know, displaying beautiful Muay Thai as well. Got dropped in both of those fights. Look, the main concern for me here is I love Charles Oliveira. I love supporting him going into his fights, but, you know, he's always a drama show. You know, he's always, you know, the crying, the whole fucking team around him, 20 fucking Brazilians with blonde hair in the fucking locker room as he's cutting weight. You know, everybody's crying and praying around him. It's just a whole drama show, and you're always worried about him, dude. Dude, you're always worried about Charles Oliveira. And I hate it, dude. He's such a stressful fighter to support. Because he panics. He's so panicky, but he can always, you know, find his way back. He made his career off of that, being able to find a way back, you know, getting dropped and then getting back up and just marauding his way to a submission or a TKO. When you look at that first fight with Michael Chandler, of course, got dropped badly and then almost finished on the ground. He utilized head movement on the ground. And then second round, of course, got the left hook TKO. Charles de Bronx is the champion. Did the high knees around the octagon. Everybody loved it. But I'm super concerned about Charles's chin here. He goes down so easy to a hard shot. And with Michael Chandler just being so fucking coming into this fight, just frustrated and angry, he's going to let it all hang out in this fight here. If he drops Charles Oliveira, I don't think he's going to be Dustin, you know, back up, comb the hair, pull the shorts up, you know, wave him up, you know, be composed. I don't think he's going to be Justin Gaethje, who, you know, is shitting bricks just seeing Charles Oliveira on the ground because he has no jiu-jitsu. And I think Michael Chandler, if he drops Charles Oliveira here, he's going to jump on him like a gorilla on steroids and meth at the same time and hammer fist his fucking head into the canvas, which I don't want to see, and I would cry afterwards. But I'm going to pick Michael Chandler to win this fight by TKO. Solely based off the fact that I can't trust Charles to go in there and be confident. It's so frustrating, man. Because if he goes out there and fights like how he needs to, then he wins. He beats like half the division. I think he could beat everybody except for Islam if he goes out there and fights how he needs to. But he's just such a head case. He's so fucking wishy-washy on himself. I mean, you see this guy check in and out of fights as they're happening. You know, you look at the Arman Tsarukyan fight in the second round. Charles Oliveira had accepted defeat at that point. You know, you look at him versus Islam Makhachev. As soon as Islam Makhachev got on him in that second round, he fucking crumbled and accepted defeat, dude. Just like how he used to in the beginning of his career before he got on his, you know, title fight win streak. I think that he started to get a little bit comfy, a little bit, you know, feeling himself after he won the belt. I mean, hell, you look at his fucking house, he's got 20 fucking pictures of himself up on the wall. You know, he's a self-absorbed guy, super dramatic, and that just doesn't help you when you're going into a fight with a guy that's just gorilla-brained, you know, lizard-brained, like Michael Chandler, who isn't thinking about anything except for taking your head off. Charles Oliveira is probably in the middle of his fights, you know, when he's on the ground, he's probably like thinking about his daughter and shit. He's just soft, man. I love him, and he's a great fighter. He's super inspirational the way he's always able to, you know, pull off impressive finishes, and he's just super exciting, always brings a great fight. But I think Michael Chandler coming in here super frustrated after not getting the McGregor fight, has been preparing like a madman for 2 years now. And, you know, when you look at Charles Oliveira, what's his motivation going into this fight? To be able to fight the winner of Arman Tsarukyan and Islam Makhachev, 2 guys he lost to and shit the bed against, and guys that I would just completely expect him not to want to fight. I don't think Charles Oliveira even wants to fight for the title after this. What's his motivation? And you look at Michael Chandler, this dude's got his entire life planned out, written up on a whiteboard with sticky notes on it. He's a super punctual guy. You know, he wants to go in there. I'm going to fight Charles Oliveira. Then I'm going to fight Islam Makhachev for the belt. Then I'm going to fight Max Holloway. Then I'm going to fight Conor McGregor. You know, he's super determined. He's got goals set, and he's working towards them. And that's scary as fuck. For me as a Charles Oliveira fan, I want Charles Oliveira to win, but I just see the fucking... I don't know. I just see the bad vibe approaching. I see a dark storm cloud approaching with rain, and it's going to be sad. And that dark storm cloud is going to be a big lightning strike of a right hand on Charles Oliveira's chin by Michael Chandler. He's going to sleep him, and he's going to do backflips, and it's going to be horrible. I got Michael Chandler winning this fight. Charles Oliveira, when he's fighting guys that with the threat of the takedown, even in their first fight, when he's fighting guys with the threat of the takedown, unless he's just in his favela do Bronx mode where he goes out there and leaves it all on the line and has to get the finish. Unless he gets in that mode, he is super, super tentative, scared, doesn't like to be offensive, doesn't throw many kicks, won't let the right hand go. He's only like that when he's fighting guys, like motherfucking Justin and Dustin. I mean, you look at the Kevin Lee fight, he had really good success there on the ground, but, that's Kevin Lee. That's not a Michael Chandler. Kevin Lee is, much lower level than Michael Chandler. Let's just be real. Even though I am a fan of Kevin Lee. I got Michael Chandler winning this fight by TKO. He is chinny as well. I mean, you see him getting dropped in a lot of his fights. Tony Ferguson dropped him. Dustin Poirier dropped him, of course. Justin Gaethje put a hell of a lot of damage on him. He's been hurt on multiple occasions. But, I think that with the time off, that's actually going to help his chin. I think he's going to be able to eat, a shot that maybe he couldn't when he was constantly fighting and being active with back-to-back weight cuts. I think he's going to come in here fully prepared, super, super determined, because, I actually think he has future fights that are really on the table for him. Unlike Charles Oliveira, I think that Charles, if he wins this, I mean, what is there for him at lightweight other than fighting contenders on the rise that are ranked below him, or fighting in a title fight that he doesn't want versus opponents that are going to beat him, and he knows that. So the determination is in question. He's already been a champion, super self-absorbed, super dramatic. I feel like, he's less confident than he used to be now that he's taken these losses and lost his belt. I think he's less hungry than he used to be. I feel like he's much less hungry than he used to be. I mean, you just look in his eyes, the look in his eyes when he went out there to fight Dustin Poirier. That was a man on a mission. You look at him in fight week at UFC 300, chilling, give me my money, chilling with Alex Pereira. I don't think he's the same guy as, 2021 Charles Oliveira. I think that Michael Chandler is hungrier than ever, super determined, has goals in mind. I think Charles Oliveira just doesn't have the determination to fight for the belt again after he's already got it. It's going to be a bad day. If Charles loses, I think he's going to. Give me Michael Chandler to win this. Round 1, TKO, nasty overhand, sleeping Charles Oliveira. Kill me now with a gun. Our main event of the evening. Jon Jones versus Old Man Stipe Miocic. Old Man Stipe with his old man gray and his old man cane with his old man ways. Dude, that video fucking had me geeked. But Stipe Miocic versus Jon Bones Jones. Let me tell you about Jon Jones. Jon Jones is the GOAT of the sport. #1 pound for pound. Look, of course, the Dana White glaze has been funny in the months leading up to this fight. But, it's been good promotion. It's been funny memes. And, it's honestly really funny to me because it's low-key ironic because he's kind of right. He's not pound for pound #1 right now. You got to put Islam Makhachev above him. But, Jon Jones is without a doubt the GOAT of the sport. And yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, he is the GOAT. The resume speaks for itself. He's just beaten so many former champions, so many legends. The resume goes without, needing introduction. You guys all know about Jon Jones. But, Stipe Miocic coming in here off a long layoff, of course, last time out versus Francis. Took a bad left hook TKO there. I gotta pick, you got to go with Jon Jones. You gotta go with the GOAT, man. I mean, it's just how it is. Stipe Miocic is a great fighter, don't get me wrong. But, unless he's able to just be super, super good with the defensive grappling, like he did against Daniel Cormier, don't get me wrong, he did very good against Daniel Cormier. I think that Jon Jones is a much better MMA grappler than Daniel Cormier. He's faster, he's slicker, he's got better jiu-jitsu than Daniel Cormier. So look, I think that Stipe Miocic, although he did show very good takedown defense in the trilogies with Daniel Cormier, even getting some takedowns of his own, look, it's simple as this. Jon Jones is on a completely different level. You know, he beat DC twice. It goes without saying. I mean, Jon Jones, one of the fighters that got me into this sport, you know, his 2 fights with DC, some of my favorite fights of all time, just because of, you know, the high level MMA displayed in the octagon. I mean, when you want to talk about the highest level MMA fights of all time, you're talking about Jon Jones and DC, and you're talking about Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev in terms of just the highest level MMA you can ever see from 2 opponents in a cage. And Jon Jones, look, the thing that makes Jon Jones is the fact that he's not super good anywhere. He's not super good anywhere. I'm sounding like Anthony Smith right now. He's not good anywhere. You know, he's just good at everything. That's just exactly what Anthony Smith said. But look, he kind of had a point on paper. Jon Jones, you know, he doesn't have the best hands ever. He's not knocking guys out clean with, you know, 1 shot. Doesn't rip to the body and show hella good hand combinations. Isn't the best kicker in the sport. You know, isn't constantly head kicking people, you know, like a Barboza or something like that. You know, he's not a Topuria with the hands. You know, he's not a Khamzat Chimaev with the wrestling and the grappling. But what Jon Jones is incredibly well-rounded. He's great everywhere, obviously. I mean, he's the GOAT. Come on. We know his skill set. But what I love the most about Jon Jones is his fight IQ and also just his willingness to win. And ultimately, that plus the fact that he brought in, you know, the most insane, you know, grappling team to prepare him for this fight, of course, is coming off the injury before the fight that they were supposed to have at UFC 295 last year. You know, hurt his pec. You got to think that is going to affect him a little bit here, but I think that Jon Jones, if Jon Jones is going into a fight, he's fully prepared and he's fully expecting himself to win because he's completely narcissistic and his entire thing is just being undefeated and not losing. You know, Jon Jones is coming in here to cement himself as the GOAT and retire. That's just a completely different type of motivation in his hometown in New York at Madison Square Garden. You know, Trump's going to be in attendance just after winning the election. Thank God. Fuck Kamala Harris. In the bin. But, you know, Trump's going to be in attendance in New York. It's going to be a huge event. Jon Jones retirement fight versus Stipe Miocic. And look, I know that it should be Tom Aspinall. Of course, it should be Tom Aspinall. But look, let's just enjoy this fight. We know they're both going to retire afterwards. And when you look at it, you know, Stipe, I think he's going to make it entertaining. But, you know, even if he's able to defend the takedowns of Jon Jones, which I don't think he's going to be able to, Jon Jones, you know, he's been training with this crazy grappling team. Gordon Ryan and Gable Stevenson, I think it's pretty obvious what Jon Jones is going to go in here and try and do. He's going to look to take him down. He's going to look to submit him. But Jon Jones, of course, very crafty on the feet, super defensively sound. Some of the best defense in MMA. Super good long guard, keeping guys at range. Of course, like I said, super determined to win. He will use that long guard to eye poke his opponents. That's no secret. You know, Jon Jones is a guy that he has all the skills. You know, we talk about his defense, his fight IQ, stuff like that. You know, he's got great head movement, doesn't get hit clean a lot whatsoever. Of course, he has a great chin, has gotten tagged with nasty shots, never been dropped, never been TKO'd. But, you know, when you talk about the determination to win and him doing anything to win, he will. He's super selfish and a horrible person, but that helps him as an MMA fighter. I mean, you look at the fact of him constantly oblique kicking his opponents, tearing their fucking ACLs, no regard for their career or anything like that, just his own success, which is what you want in a fighter. But look, you know, he's going to be stomping the legs, trying to tear their ACL. You saw that in the Thiago Santos fight, you know, the eye pokes, of course, and almost all of his fights in his fucking career. He's going to be oblique kicking, he's going to be eye poking, and that's going to hurt Stipe Miocic. And Stipe, you know, look, if this was a prime Stipe in 2020 before the fucking Francis Ngannou rematch, you can make a case, but, you know, he's going to be one step behind. The ring rust is going to be there. His hands aren't the fastest in the first place. I mean, you see him landing good combinations against, you know, a raw Ngannou who is just windmilling punches. And you look at him beating, you know, the older generation of heavyweights, an Arlovsky, a Werdum, you know, guys like this, Junior Dos Santos. And even with his success on the feet versus Daniel Cormier is a much shorter, stationary target with much worse striking than Jon Jones. Let's just be real. Jon Jones is going to keep it at range. Jon Jones is going to do his thing. I mean, I don't really have to sit here and explain Jon Jones's game. I'm sure you guys, are vastly familiar with his career, of course. He's the go-to the sport. But he's coming in here super determined to just get a win and keep his GOAT status. Stipe Miocic, I don't want that belt back. I don't want the belt back. Of course he wants his belt back. The classic meme of Stipe and his fucking speech is hilarious. But, I think Stipe is coming in here determined. But I think that Stipe is just not going to be fast enough, and I just don't think his defensive grappling is just going to be there. I really don't. I just don't think he has the training partners around him to just really be able to push him at this point in his career to be able to have any success against a Jon Jones who is coming in here to cement GOAT status and has been training with, Stevenson, Gordon Ryan. He's going to go in there and really try to implement the grappling. Of course, I'm picking Jon Jones. How do I see this fight playing out? I think in round one, I think we're going to start really slow. I think that Jon Jones, establishes the jab, works the teep kick a little bit, a couple slower leg kicks, oblique kicks at range. And I think Stipe, he's going to start slow mainly because, the ring rust hasn't been in the cage for 4+ years almost now. And I think that it's going to take him some time to get settled in. I think at the end of the first round, Stipe is just going to be slightly getting outstruck at range, and he's going to try and, close the distance with his hands, which he does have good boxing, but, you want to talk about a speed differential coming up from light heavyweight to heavyweight. It's a big one, especially with a guy like Jon Jones with the skills to follow it up. Stipe is just going to be at a speed disadvantage. I think that at the end of the first round, he's going to go in there and really try and put the hands on Jon Jones. I think he tags him a couple times, gives Jon Jones some things to worry about, and then I think Jon is going to level change, get the takedown at the end of round one, securing a round where, he just kind of landed some pitter-pat at range, got lit up on the feet a little bit, gets the takedown, because you got to think that he's been wrestling heavy in this fight camp to prepare for Stipe and to take him down to the ground. And in the second round, I think that Jon Jones is going to, make an adjustment. He's the best fighter of all times in terms of making an adjustment on the fly. I mean, we've seen that in his career. Wherever the fight goes, he's going to take it to where he will be advantageous. If he's having success with the takedowns, he's going to go for it. If he's having success on the feet, he's going to go for it, and he will stifle your game plan, whatever it is. He's just the smartest fighter of all time, super defensively sound, and I think that in the second round, Stipe might be starting to get a little bit tired just, by virtue of being 42 years of age, not have been in the cage for 4 years now, and I think that Jon Jones is going to, keep with the striking a little bit, maybe a spinning back kick here and there, and I think that, they're going to get together in the clinch. I think Stipe is going to try and pressure him. I think Jon, slips a shot, gets the underhooks, reverses Stipe against the cage, and I think he takes him down. And I think, in almost a poetic fashion, I think Jon Jones is going to get a classic elbow TKO on the ground with 12-6 elbows. I think that is actually going to be on the forefront of Jon Jones's mind. You know how Jon Jones is. As soon as he knows even just a slight thing he can take advantage of, he's going to try and do it. And I think that, in almost a poetic or storybook manner, he's going to get a takedown in the second round. He's going to get into mount. I think he's going to be really working on his jiu-jitsu, just being able to, transition seamlessly and out-grapple Stipe Miocic. And I think he's going to go in there and get a 12-6 elbow TKO. He knows he can throw him now. I think he's going to, just drop elbows on Stipe Miocic. Not do a ton of damage, but Stipe just unable to reverse position. I just don't think he has the get-up game necessary to be able to escape whatever Jon Jones is going to be preparing for him. Gable Stevenson, Gordon Ryan in his corner, like I said, it's just going to be a big factor in terms of Jon Jones being sharp with his grappling here. I think he's going to go in there, get the takedown in the second round, and finish Stipe with 12-6 elbows in a classic Jon Jones way. So give me Jon Bones Jones to win with his, signature elbow TKO, 12-6 elbow, second round knockout. For Jon Jones, I think he retires afterwards. I don't think we see the Pereira fight. I don't think we see the Tom Aspinall fight, but that's how I see this going. And, even though it's the new cool thing to hate on Jon Jones, I get it. He's a terrible person. I mean, anybody that ever has put their hands on a woman, including Dana White, who's a little worm, you know, both of them are pieces of shit, but look, you know, they're both good at what they do, and you can't take that away from them, unfortunately, even though they're horrible people, because, you know, like I said, anybody that's a woman beater deserves to get put in jail and hit in the head with a baseball bat, Dana White and Jon Jones included. But, you know, apart from all the crazy shit that he has done in his career and the fact that he's a horrible person, you know, you kind of got to be a fan of him just because he's the GOAT of the sport. He's undefeated. Everybody hates him. Everybody wants Aspinall to beat his ass and TKO him before he retires. And he's just not going to let that happen. And he's going to sail off into the sunset and, you know, going to be considered the GOAT of the sport unless Elliot beats Islam Makhachev, in which he would jump Jon Jones for GOAT status. But that's how I see this event going. Looking forward to it. Gonna be interesting to see what happens in the post-fight speech. I'm pretty sure Tom Aspinall will be in attendance, so we'll have to see. But, you know, Tom is just, he's too respectful. I could see Jon Jones even accepting a face-off in the cage and just never fighting him. There's gonna be Instagram posts. Oh, what could have been? Oh, Tom Aspinall would have knocked his ass out. Oh, Tom Aspinall retired Jones without even fighting him. You know, the classic shit. I actually think Jon Jones would beat Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall, dude, he's got a big old 1-2 and a spear takedown, a rugby tackle, and he probably doesn't have cardio because he's never been out of the first round and a half. Dude, Jon Jones is smart enough to not get TKO'd and to just win by decision. I would pick Jon Jones to beat Tom Aspinall. So I'll end with that. I really do think it's funny what Jon Jones is doing to the fan base and everything like that, because realistically, why would he fight Tom Aspinall? I mean, I do think he could beat him, but why even take the risk? There is a chance that he could get TKO'd. I'm not that delusional. I'm not saying it's a lock. I'd say I'd prefer Jones, like, you know, just slightly 60-40%, you know, slight favorite in terms of betting, you know, maybe a -150 favorite. That's how I'd handicap that fight. But, you know, look, I think that he has nothing left to prove. I don't think he needs to fight Aspinall. I don't think he needs to fight Pereira, but if that does happen, those would both be sick mega fights. So those are on the table. I don't see him happening. I think Jon Jones goes out here, finishes Stipe Miocic in the second round with 12-6 elbows, and retires as the GOAT of the sport. And it's going to be a good moment just because, look, I mean, Jon Jones, like I said, he's a bad person, but what he's done for the sport, the constant drama and the entertainment throughout the years has been good. Even though sometimes he's not the most entertaining fighter, you're lying to yourself if you aren't at least a little bit excited for a Jon Jones fight week. That's just how it is. So those are my closing thoughts. Thank you guys for watching the video. I appreciate you watching all the way through. If you did, like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you agree or disagree with any of my predictions or any of my takes, and have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the card this weekend.